Welcome back to another episode of the Hormone Hub podcast, where we talk all things perimenopause, menopause, and have the conversations no one else is having. Sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode. Hello, ladies, and welcome back to the Hormone Hub podcast, where I am your host, Kylie Pinwell, and today we are in for a special treat. So we have got a lady as a guest who I've known for 7 or 8 years now, Tammy Guest. So Tammy, I first met Tammy as she was a mentor of mine when I was sort of taking my business from clinic onto online. So Tammy's a mentor, speaker. She's a freedom seeker who takes people on adventures and reminds them how to live. And I think when I was working with you, Tammy, we didn't learn, it wasn't about the technical side of going online in your business. What you taught me was the mindset stuff. To this day, I actually do use with my clients. And it's funny because as it's coming out of my mouth, I know exactly, you pop up in my head and I know exactly where those little gems came from. So welcome, Tammy.
It's so good. I'm really excited to have this conversation because a lot can happen in 7 or 8 years, and I often get told that I'm the person that pops up in people's minds when they're having random thoughts in the shower or they're trying to help one of their clients, that my voice pops into their head. So that's a lovely thing to be reminded of as well.
Absolutely. So it's good to have this conversation. Now, today, Tammy and I aren't actually speaking business. We aren't speaking, what it's like to be a clinician or anything like that. So Tammy has been on a bit of an adventure of her own the last 12 months or so, 18 months.
Yeah. Probably we're coming up on 20 months of my hormone journey that I hadn't even realized was going to be a thing. And all of a sudden,
Yeah.
that timing hits and it's a thing.
It's a thing. Yeah. So because most of you may not know. So Tammy was put into induced menopause with a hysterectomy. And this comes up quite a lot in our group, in the conversations, and for younger women as well as women sort of in their 40s and 50s as well. So going into having a hysterectomy, and I think what I really see with a lot of women is they're not told what happens after the hysterectomy, like what that actually means for their body. So Tammy, is with that clinician background, is as a naturopath, is the perfect person to sort of talk us through when things don't go the way we imagine.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Tammy, talk us through sort of, say, 2 years ago, or whenever your sort of hormonal symptoms started to sort of flare up and rear their ugly heads. Like, what did that look like for you?
Yeah. So a few years back, I was heading into turning 40, and I thought, okay, I've got to get this baseline stuff sorted because my mum actually had a hysterectomy in her 40s. And we often are told, oh, there's some genetic link on how we're going to get our period, how it's going to roll out, and how we're going to have babies. And that's true to a point. And I didn't really want to buy into it. But what I was starting to notice was, after having my wonderful birth that I had when I turned 30, I gave birth. And after that, my period started to get a little heavier. And I would have some really severe PMS the day before and the day of my period, the first day of my period. And the older I got, it just kept getting kind of worse and worse. And I was thinking, there's got to be something in this hormonally, especially from my naturopathic background. I was thinking, okay, wonder what's happening here with the estrogen or the progesterone or the storage of it or the metabolism of it. And then I got a little bit hefty on it. And I thought, okay, I'm turning 40. I just want some baseline stuff done.
Yeah.
And I went to my GP and I said, "Oh, look, I'm starting to get these symptoms that are not comfortable anymore. I've got some pretty severe dark moods that happen once a month, and although I forget them for the other 28 days, those 2 days,
Yeah.
I can really put myself into a hole, and I don't think that should be acceptable for me in my life, and I'm a little worried about my mental health, to be honest." And she said, "Oh, well, you're probably about that age. I suppose we could do some blood tests."
about that age.
So, okay. She goes, "You're probably a little bit young, actually, but we'll do some blood tests to ease your mind anyway." And I thought, oh, sure, blood tests, fine. And I said, "Oh, and I've got these other little symptoms. Like I'm waking up in the middle of the night like 6 times to get up to do a little wee." And I was like, I'm not too sure about this. Is this a thing as well, or is it just because similarly?" And my mum had had fibroids, which are growths that happen inside the uterus. And I thought, oh, maybe I've got something like that because I had waited until I was 30 to give birth naturally. And she said, "Oh, well, no, we'll just get the blood test first and see what's happening." And I thought, okay, cool. I looked up a little bit of the PubMed research that we do as clinicians, and waking up 6 times a night to go and do a wee actually isn't really a normal kind of occurrence. And the fact that it was getting worse and wasn't staying the same was a little thing as well. I ended up going in the blood test. Oh, they're mostly normal. Anyone else heard? They're mostly normal.
Mostly normal. How reassuring.
Yeah. So then I was getting frustrated, which is a wonderful sign of our slow burning anger that we hit in perimenopausal years as well. And I was starting to think, okay, there has to be something in this. And then I started to actually bleed after I had sex. It was rare, but it would happen. And I thought, okay, I'm going to go to the doctor and let her know, because I know that this is actually can be a symptom. And I have had clients with it, that it's ovarian cancer. And I thought, well, we don't want that about this time of my life.
Yeah.
So I went and told her, and I said, I need a scan.
Yep.
I just need to see what's happening in there, because if I do have fibroids like my mum, I just want to know what's happening. No, don't want to do that, but we will do a pap smear. I was like, well, if you're in there already, how about we just do a scan? It's not that hard. And I think this is the bit that a lot of your listeners would have an issue with, is because my background is in pathology and testing. And then I became a clinician, and I am able to understand tests and what is actually required to negate something that might be a serious pathological condition. And so
Yeah.
there are tests that we do to make sure that that's not the thing.
Yeah.
And
That's
and
something like ovarian cancer. I had a guest on the show, and she was so lucky that she had a great GP, because she went in with her symptoms. The GP was like, "Yep, no, that's not right. Let's get you sorted." And she
mm,
had stage 1 ovarian cancer.
yeah. And
It,
this is it. We have 150,000 GPs in Australia. And the thing about it is, not all of them are the same, and not all of them have the exposure to different types of conditions. The human body is wacky doodah, and they have different experience in the longevity of their careers as well. And so, depending on who you see, you might have to advocate for yourself. And not, if you know and you have that niggly feeling, you're better off saying something and pushing for your own health and well-being than not saying anything.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think my listeners have heard that several times.
Another
We'll keep saying it until
reminder from a different voice. So
we'll keep saying it until the last person in the room gets it. Know your body better than anyone. So you're the advocate for your own health always.
yeah, and even with my 2 health science degrees, I still had to advocate for myself. I finally got the scan, and it ends up I have 2 large masses, one coming off of each of my ovaries. One was 12 centimeters and the other one was 18 centimeters. So about the size of a grapefruit and possibly a large rock melon.
Yeah.
And
Just to sort of give you a bit of context, Tammy's not a big person either.
no.
That would have been quite significant bulge in your abdomen there.
Yeah, it was actually pushing up on my liver, and I wasn't even aware of that.
Oh, wow.
So it was causing some little whacked out results on my liver enzymes, which she said was mostly normal.
Oh, because that wouldn't have anything to do with your estrogen results either.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
So she was very quick to help me after she saw the scans. Thankfully, she finally came on board once the evidence was there, and I got the referral. And like you said, I got put on to a surgeon specifically to get a hysterectomy and take out those growths. Those growths ended up being a teratoma, and teratomas are a germ cell tumor. And so they're mostly benign, and germ cells are able to split into any different cell in your body. They're like the magical cell that gets to choose what it wants to be, whether it wants to be a tooth cell or a bone cell or a hair cell or a fat cell.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing about them, they used to be called dermoid cysts for people who are a little bit older. Yeah, they actually are a mass that have all these weird and wacky growth things
That's
inside them.
really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, they're really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. But still, like I think any type of, whenever we hear growth or tumor, any of those, we automatically go into panic mode. So was hysterectomy the only option for you?
So, speaking of the panic mode,
Yep.
bless my beautiful brain, it went into complete. I'm watching every YouTube video. I'm reading all of the scientific research. I became a teratoma expert in the next 72 hours for 40-year-old women who have teratomas of X size and what the possibilities could happen for those. And because of my age, in actual fact, there is a risk factor for it being cancerous and the size of it. So those did have to come out. And the fact that I was having some of these other findings that they had found in there, I had some little endometrial polyps and some other weird and wacky things that were growing all by themselves. They decided that, yes, hysterectomy was the only option because it was actually pushing up on my liver as well.
Yep.
But they decided to leave one ovary because, just the same as we see all across the medical profession, we do want to have healthy hormonal tissue when we can, our own healthy hormonal tissue when we can. And so they took all of the uterus, the growths, and one ovary. And it was a really interesting experience to have major abdominal surgery because I hadn't had surgery my entire life. I'd had my appendix out when I was a teenager, but that was nothing really compared to this. And I'd actually lost 10 kilos in the first 2 weeks after I had, because of the size of these things and what
Yeah.
inflammation was occurring around them.
Yep.
And I started to notice as soon as it was taken out that I went into medical induced menopause. 2/3 of my hormone tissue that had been producing hormones disappeared, and I had my first hot flush, and I am not a fan.
So were you prepped prior to the surgery about the likelihood of you going into surgically induced menopause and what to expect?
Nobody said anything. My GP did not say anything.
Yep.
My surgeon said, "You'll probably go into medically induced menopause basically the next day. And that's why we're going to leave essentially half your ovary so that it's not as bad." But that was it. There was no conversation about
Oh,
what I could do about that. There was no conversation about anything naturally, let alone anything pharmaceutically. There just wasn't a conversation. And again, thankfully, I have my background, and I was really lucky to have a couple of colleagues suggest there is quite a number of telehealth, menopause-specific telehealth doctors' surgeries now that are specifically helping with menopausal symptoms and body identical hormones. So I got onto them
yeah.
just from knowing myself, definitely not from there wasn't even a pamphlet that
Yeah.
told me this
Which
is
is
what you probably should expect.
crazy because it's such a significant like milestone in a woman's life anyway, but then to be put into an induced menopause overnight with no conversation, no, oh, by the way, this is what you might experience or anything like that. And it is sadly something that I do hear a lot about. And I get these messages, these DMs, PMs from all these women going, oh, I had a hysterectomy 2 weeks ago and I'm dying.
Yeah.
They didn't tell me anything. They didn't help me. They didn't support me. So I think that's where, like, medically, we are lucky that we've got what we have on offer because it does a lot. But I think they don't join the dots for us. And
No.
that's what is missing. And I think, I guess, as natural health practitioners, we're there then to pick up the pieces and help join the dots for a lot of.
Absolutely. And to be honest, that's not their role. Their role is very specific. She was a uterus and ovarian surgeon, and that was it. Like,
We
Yeah.
have surgery and we get the bits out.
Yeah, exactly. And my GP had her scope as well. And I think, like you said, we have this very unique place to sit in where we have, and we persist to tell everybody that we have a holistic perspective, because we do. We really do. We understand that this is connected to that, which is connected to that, which is connected to that. So all of the down cascade effects of that particular surgery or that particular drug or that particular hormone are going to be whole body experiences that, yeah, we can support in all sorts of different ways. And I was able to think about that for myself and talk to some really great colleagues. And I was able to support myself physically, whether it was increasing some of the vitamins and minerals that are specific with hormone production, whether it was understanding the body identical hormones, which I can go into a little bit later, whether it was understanding mentally what I might go through, because it's a shift. And most of us go through the shift in our 40s and 50s, but I had only just turned 40 and I didn't expect that this was going to be my early array into the crone years, as some of my very spiritually minded friends talk about. Like, crone, I don't know about that. What wise woman years? I'm like, "Well, I don't know about that either."
I'm quite liking at the moment, and one of the guests on my show a couple of weeks ago, Jane Moe, so she's a fashion stylist, and she talks about it in seasons. And I was like,
Yeah,
I really like that. So it's the coming into a new season. But,
absolutely.
but when you've had summer ripped out from underneath you and all of a sudden you've skipped fall and gone straight to winter.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think when my daughter became a teenager, and another friend of ours talks about being a queenager. So our
Yeah.
hormones get a little interesting at queenager years. I love that. When she became a teenager, and she had her first period, we had all of the aunties and the grandmas, and we all went out and had a high tea, and we gave her a little calendar black book to mark her period and a little purse to hold her sanitary items and things in. And we made a celebration of it. And I thought, what? I'm going to just whip into this queenager years. I'm going to have my own celebration. So I had a high tea, and a friend of mine cooked a cake
I
that
saw
was in the
the
shape of a
photos.
uterus that
Yeah.
said, "See you later, ovulator." And it was really great to talk to a whole bunch of women who had been through or were going through similar experiences. And some had babies, some didn't have kids, some had these issues earlier on. Like, we got to talk about periods from a historical perspective instead of going through it at the moment. And it was just really nourishing to even have that part of that change looked after, as well as my physicality.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. And acknowledged as well,
Hmm.
that it is moving into that next season of life rather than you just sort of like quietly mourning it by yourself.
Yeah.
So I don't think
Yeah.
that's healthy. And unfortunately, I do hear from a lot of women that that's their experience. So
Yeah. Yeah.
this Hormone Hub episode is sponsored by our free Hormone Help Call. Book in your call today with one of our experienced advisors, and we'll give you some clarity around what's causing your symptoms and some simple steps you can use straight away to improve your menopause experience. If you're ready to take the next step, book in a call and find out more about how we can help you have a smoother transition through perimenopause and menopause. Let us help you balance out your hormones, reset your metabolism, and get your confidence back so you can live the life you're meant to. The link with all the details is in our show notes or over at kyliepinwell.com/hormone-help-call. So in terms of like the recovery from surgery, so because it is major abdominal surgery, so how long, just to sort of give women who have got sort of hysterectomy on their radar, like how is the recovery process for you?
Yeah, so they talk about it as 6 to 12 weeks. And I wouldn't really, if anyone's gone through giving birth with a medical intervention, it's a very similar kind of time frame and a very similar kind of recovery, because it's all of those same muscles and same bits and pieces that are going on. I had blocked out the month, and I had to have some really courageous conversations, because I have 3 kids, although they're mostly adult and teenagers. I have 3 kids, but I am the linchpin of our family.
Yeah. Mm.
And being the linchpin of our family, whether somebody was we were still going through the COVID years, whether someone was sick, I had to empower my hubby to be able to look after everybody, not just fall back on me to look after everybody because I had to really look after myself. And I think that anyone in a similar situation, we are the caregivers and we're so used to caring for others that we forego the caring for ourselves, even if it's as small as 1 month out of the
Yeah.
100 months that we have in. It's so interesting. It was a mindset shift for myself, is the bit where it's okay
Yeah.
to be in recovery for a month.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
And then, so was it the full 6 to 12 months before you were sort of back up on your feet? And
Oh, so that was the initial 6 to 12 weeks, because you're actually very fatigued, and I had helped other people through it, and I didn't really understand the level of fatigue. But you're rebuilding whole parts of you. Your whole abdomen is remodeling itself. Like, there's all sorts of things that your body is just doing absolutely the best it can with the energy that it has. And so that you do have a lot of brain fog and all sorts of
yeah.
weird and wacky things that I just didn't expect. I thought, oh yes, I'm going to have a sore tummy. And I had a belly band, which, my goodness, if you're having a hysterectomy, go get a belly band. A
Yeah.
belly band, they are the best
Yeah.
things. That, like, if nothing else, wrapping that thing around me so that I felt safe to walk around and felt safe to get back into exercise after those 12 weeks. And it was just a support and a hug exactly where I needed it.
Yeah.
Just hot tip.
Yeah. Amazing.
Mm.
All right. So when you sort of had that first hot flush, talk us through that. What did that?
Mm.
I've yet to
So
have one, so that's
I've only had one. And then I was like, right.
right. This is not okay. Yeah.
This is-
I know.
so
I've not had any yet, and I keep going, okay, we'll just touch all the woods and then keep doing the taking.
Exactly. There's some beautiful herbs to help with that, but I just didn't expect it to happen quite so quickly. And it did. It happened within the first 36 hours. And thankfully, I had already set myself up with those telehealth consultations with hormone related GPs and ensured that I had body identical hormones for myself when I needed them.
Yep.
And so I had a hot flush and it was awful. It was like having prickly heat rash all over you for no reason at all. And it came from, it was awful. I have no idea how women do it all the time.
Yeah.
I saw some wonderful experiences of it on national TV more recently, and it's becoming more and more. But you can't concentrate. All you're thinking about is, where is this heat coming from, and when's it going to dissipate, and what's it doing? And it's so prickly, and it's so all-consuming, and it's so physical. You can't not be in it. And then it passes, thankfully, like a little bit like wasabi, but takes a little bit more time. But I was not up for it. There was just no way I was doing that. I couldn't function. I couldn't have a conversation. I couldn't. It was like a hot version of the pain you get when you have a wave of contraction having a baby. It was just, yeah, it wasn't pain necessarily for me personally, my experience, but it was heat that you just can't concentrate on anything else. Yeah.
And that's the thing, when you look at women in that age group having hot flushes and things like that at work, or women having critical, imagine teaching a classroom of teenagers. Imagine being a nurse in a hospital. Imagine any
Yeah, or being on large equipment, or being a tradesperson, or having to
proper
be,
planning. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Gosh, crazy. So then talk us through the or bioidentical hormones.
Yeah. So I had read, I'm sure you've shared Lara Bryden's work. It's a great, okay, cool. It's a great book, The Hormone Repair Manual. And she talks in there about body identical, which is what the doctors call it, but bioidentical, which is what naturopaths have called it for a long time. And those hormones are hormones. They're not chemically made weird and wacky, slightly different versions of hormones, which is what we've generally had in the pill, or we've been given in the pill since the 1970s. They're actually hormone.
Yes.
And the research on those is very different to the research that we've had on the chemically made hormones that we used to be wary of.
Absolutely. So conjugated equine hormones from a pregnant mare, if anyone is wondering where they came from. And it used to be estrogen only as well.
Yes. Yeah.
So now we have on offer progesterone and
Mhm.
estrogen. So when we go into menopause, we lose all of our hormones. We don't just lose estrogen. And I think it's important, again, when you're advocating for your own health and you want to explore the route of hormone replacement therapy, we want to have a look at progesterone and estrogen, not just estrogen.
Yeah, so estrogen doesn't help us sleep, but progesterone does. Progesterone goes through a cascade that then comes out as a positive version of estrogen that is anti-inflammatory and also plays a role in melatonin production. And so every single person that I've spoken to about their perimenopause has spoken about sleep issues and how sleep has changed, whether it's you're getting up at 3:30 or 4:30 in the morning when you never used to, or you're having a hard time going to sleep, or you're waking up multiple times in the middle of the night. All of that can be helped by regulating your progesterone in particular. Progesterone also has a massive effect on bone health. And we all know that everyone's worried about osteoporosis in our aging years and how important it is for weight bearing exercise. But progesterone plays a massive role in that. And especially if you've been medically induced into menopause, then you're missing out on potentially a decade's worth of progesterone to lay down that bone and mineral health longer term. Progesterone is also found in the brain, in the skin cells, and in your adrenal glands, which help us with stress. And
Yes.
so, if we have progesterone just magically disappearing, all of these places and spaces that it plays in are going to be affected.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing. And I think also at the age and stage we're at in life, we are, I think, naturally, it's a busy time of life. So we're naturally under a lot of stress. And I always sort of talk about how capable we are as women and as mums and as business owners or women in the workforce. And we just take that load and we carry that load, and people just add things to our basket and we carry around that heavy load. And what happens is our progesterone, which is starting to diminish anyway, goes off to make cortisol to keep those stress hormones going. So we're losing, I always think of progesterone, it's like a leaky bucket. We're
Yeah, a leaky basket that you.
because we're losing it to stress hormones and we're losing it naturally anyway. So if you sort of want to think of your happy, calming hormone that's going to give you a good night's sleep, it's progesterone. So
Absolutely. And that is in truth what happened for me. I lost my beautiful sleep. And so I was doing all of the other natural things. I was looking after my sleep hygiene. I was making sure I got new bedding. I got lavender at nighttime. I brought in chamomile tea before I went to bed. I had magnesium before I went to sleep. I was listening to meditations. I was doing all of the things, and my sleep just wasn't
yeah,
maintaining. As soon as I was able to talk to somebody and get progesterone in my case, I've slept wonderfully since. It's been fantastic.
amazing. So
Mm.
now that we're sort of 22 months down the track post-surgery, how's life sort of from a hormonal perspective, how's life looking and feeling for you these days?
So I actually had to go back because that little ovary doubled in size in the 6 months afterwards. So I actually got it whipped out as well. And
How dare it?
oh well, it was wanting to go rogue, and we were like, let's, yeah.
You're not going to play the game, you can go.
Exactly. So then it was zero hormones, but I have a very unique, just the same as every unique body, by the way. You all have a unique body. My unique body stores estrogen. And so I was starting to use a patch, because you can use patches, you can use troches, and you can use creams and gels to get your body identical estrogen. And I was using a patch, and I was starting to get these huge boobs again. massive boobs that like I was breastfeeding or something. And I was like, this is a little odd. Gee, I hope it's not something very not great. And I got to speak to another really great GP on my side. And she said, well, maybe we shouldn't be sticking the patch on as frequently. And as soon as I stopped putting the patch on as frequently, my boobs went down in size because my body actually stores estrogen. And so this is the thing, nothing's going to be a be all and end all because it's seasonal. Things grow and then they change and you got to kind of keep with it.
Yeah.
And for me, that's what I've found. There's something different happening at every point in time. And I just have to go with the flow of it. And I think that's more to the point of
Yeah.
whether you're starting to notice your sleep or you're starting to notice your mood or you're starting to notice your sexual appetite or you're starting to notice changes in your breast tissue or any of your hormonal tissue, you have to kind of go with the flow of it and see what you can do rather than focusing on the pathologizing part of it, and see what you can start to go and slowly change like you're changing a garden. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, that's a good way of describing it, and I think that's another good thing to remember too is just because you're given the hormones, it's not a one and done.
Yeah, absolutely.
Things will change, so you might have to increase or lower or play with dosage and things like that, and that's where again know your body better than anyone. So if your boobs are sort of growing, then it's like, oh, okay, maybe we need to take things down a notch, or you're not sleeping, or you're really noticing those mood swings. Yeah.
Yeah, and we're such a dynamic being. Women are such dynamic beings. We're so used to changing with the moon or changing with the shifts and changes that happen in our lives and our kids' lives and growing and changing with all of that kind of stuff. It doesn't change when you become menopausal. It's still dynamic and it's still shifting and still changing. The last bit I wanted to touch on was I what also happened with understanding my mood was that I started to notice how my brain works, and more perimenopausal women are starting to be diagnosed with ADHD and neurodiv types of diagnoses. And I was looking to help one of my kids, and I thought, oh, I'll go through the process myself before they have to go through it,
Yeah.
just to see how I can support them through the process of assessment. I went through the process of assessment. Look, there you go.
Nice.
My brain's as divergent as the rest of the ways in which I run my life and my business and other things. And I got diagnosed with ADHD and a level 1 autism. And the thing about it is there's something happening with our generation of women and coming up into these perimenopausal years where we are starting to question our sanity and question our mental health and question all of these things. And I think there's a great discovery that's happening for a lot of women in these years. And whether it's the discovery that they can stand up for themselves and say yes or no to things, or whether it's the discovery of the freedom that comes with not having a period, or whether it's the discovery of a unique way of thinking about the world or seeing the world. I think there's other little discoveries that come with being a perimenopausal woman that I really think are little nuggets of gold that we have to keep an eye out for, because it's really easy to have conversations like this and go, oh, there was this bad thing, and oh, there was this thing wasn't comfortable, and oh, that. But
Yeah.
there's some, and at the same time as they're not comfortable, there's some beautiful gold in it as
Yeah.
well. Yeah.
I think that's a whole other podcast, whole other podcast that we'll do is we'll do the gold nuggets on the other side.
Mm.
Because I think you're right. And I think we need to sort of rewrite that whole narrative on menopause, that it's not an old lady thing and it's the end of the world for us. It is a new chapter, and there's freedom on the other side of that for sure. And I just think, yeah, we're sort of at that age. Our kids are sort of little less dependent. So those, I guess, more financially secure. We're just at a different stage of life than we were in our 30s and certainly in our 20s. So
Yeah.
it's exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll end it on a positive.
I love that. Good.
Tammy, that was great. And yeah, I think we will definitely get you back on the show. We can talk more about those nuggets on the other side, because I think that's a great conversation to have. But Thank you so much for today. I think this is going to be so helpful to the women who have also been through a hysterectomy, who will be able to redirect women who've just found out that they're headed for a hysterectomy as well, just to know that you can advocate for yourself and it will be okay on the other side.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well,
Beautiful.
thanks.
Thanks for having me, Kylie.
My pleasure. And I will talk to you all in the next episode. Thank you for taking the time to listen today. You can head on over to the show notes at kyliepinwill.com/podcast, where you'll find all the links. Now, before we go, it would mean the world to me if you'd head on over to your favourite podcast channel, subscribe and leave a review. Don't forget to share it with your friends. Then stay tuned for next week's episode, and I can't wait to see you then.